Today, my friends, we are presented with perhaps one of the most confusing of parables. And so I'd like to reduce it to two questions. Why is the steward who steals from his master apparently doing something good in the eyes of Jesus? And what does dishonest wealth mean? How does he use this dishonest wealth well? In making sense of this parable, there are a lot of different interpretations. There are a lot of people that have differing opinions on what it means. So first, let's look at the steward. The steward knows he has mismanaged his master's goods. He is facing dismissal. He will shortly be out on the street, dishonored, and without a means of supporting himself. So he decides to act quickly and decisively. And so for a short period of time, he has the authority to reduce the debts of others. So he decides to attempt to gain the goodwill of the many debtors to his master by reducing their debts as quickly as possible. So what is clear is that he is not personally generous in this moment. He cares not for others, but rather for himself. He is not merciful, rather he is cunning. And because of his swiftness, because of his cunning, because of his decisiveness, Jesus points out that, quote, "The children of this world are more prudent than are the children of light." So yes, this steward is dishonest. He is literally stealing from his master, and yet Jesus says the master commended this dishonest steward for his shrewdness. I don't know about you, but that causes me to scratch my head, right? That doesn't sound like something that we should be doing. So how can this be good? So before we address this, we need to talk about the meaning now of dishonest wealth. The way to understand the phrase is to look at the translation. Dishonest wealth can also be translated as unjust wealth. So to be merely in possession of some type of wealth does not mean that we legally have a right to it. For example, a person, for various reasons, could find, let's say, a purse that has a lot of money in it. They could be in possession of that purse. But it's not something that they did to earn, right? They didn't purchase it. They don't deserve it. So a person like this could be described as having unjust wealth. It means having something that isn't yours. And so, my friends, here is the point. We are all in possession of unjust wealth. Because ultimately, everything we have comes from God, right? So our wealth isn't just money, my friends. It's a whole host of other much more important things, like the gift of life itself, God's unconditional love, the air we breathe, the food we eat, the graces we have received, and dare I even say, the health that we have, right? Those are all gifts. The forgiveness of our sins. Those are all gifts from God. And all of these are different forms of wealth. And we cannot lay claim to them by our own right. And so with this new understanding, we can now piece together the meaning of this difficult parable. We didn't earn our life. We didn't earn our health, God's grace, forgiveness, or salvation. We didn't earn any of that. These are gifts loaned by God. And likewise, all the material resources of this world are given by God for the good of everyone. So therefore, we are all stewards of whatever material wealth we have been given. But like the steward, we are tempted to squander everything on ourselves by buying into fleeting pleasures, by chasing status, by hoarding our security. And so this brings us to a very sobering truth, my friends. We oftentimes misuse God's gifts. Am I right? Every dollar spent on unnecessary luxuries, every hour wasted in selfish pursuits, those are all missed opportunities to serve. We are tempted to withhold love from others. We are tempted to hold grudges. We are tempted not to forgive, to live selfishly. And by doing so, in some way, shape, or form, we hurt others. And so Jesus, he urges us to use our gifts and to view them through the lens of having an eternal purpose. And so the lesson isn't to be dishonest, but ultimately to be wise with what we have been entrusted with. And my dear friends, we only have a short amount of time. So these words of Jesus, they make sense. Because he is saying in this parable, make friends for yourselves by means of this dishonest wealth, so that when it fails, they may welcome you into the eternal dwellings. And those friends that Jesus is referring to are those whom we serve, both God and others, through our love, through our generosity, by putting faith into practice. And so today's parable challenges us to consider how we use these gifts that God has given us. Because everything we possess, our wealth, our time, our talents, they are a gift from God. They belong to God, entrusted to us for his purposes. My friends, there is a very moving film that I think captures this concept quite well. It is in the final scene of the movie Schindler's List. How many of you have seen that movie? Oskar Schindler, he is surrounded by the Jews he saves. And he weeps. And during the course of the film, Schindler, he realizes that his immense wealth could be used to save Jewish men, women, and children. And so he hires them to work in factories, and he seeks any reason or pretext to save the Jews from Nazi concentration camps. And at the end of the movie, the war is now over, he recognizes he has saved many people, many men, women, and children, but he's weeping because he could have saved more. He looks at his fancy car. He looks at his gold pen, and he realizes that every penny spent elsewhere could have saved another life. He says this car could have saved 10 more people. This pen could have saved 2 more. His wealth, once a symbol of status, now screams of missed opportunities to serve. And so, like Schindler in this movie, we are entrusted with God's wealth. It's not ours. And so the parable today calls us to be shrewd with these gifts, investing in eternal treasures. And my friends, we will look back. We will have regret. Will we use what we have been entrusted with to build God's kingdom, knowing that nothing is ours? Or do we focus on the here and now and the worldly? So this concept of dishonest wealth allows us to recognize that everything we have, our wealth, our talent, our time, it is a gift that comes from God. Our possessions, our talents, our accomplishments, they have in their deepest origin God's grace, God's love. And so this means that being grateful to God should be a consistent attitude in our lives. You know, people who are grateful are people who are simply more compassionate, more kind, more loving, more honest. How many of you would like to have that attached to your name? Right? I want to be more compassionate. I want to be more kind. I want to be more loving. I want people to see me and be like, there's a follower of Jesus. Now, on the contrary, how selfish can we be? How arrogant when we forget this truth? When we forget our neighbor? Gratitude ultimately transforms our lives. It can reshape our perspectives. It places God number one in our lives. And my friends, this is the Christian way. This is what the church has been proclaiming since its beginning. So let's be those stewards who hear those beautiful words, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. Share your master's joy."